name's Jake and welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be talking about books that I want to reread. It is currently 7:30 a.m. Look at me being a productive bitch, getting up and filming. Just kidding, I just haven't went to bed. But we're going to continue anyways because that's just how we do it on this channel. Today I'm going to be talking about books I want to reread. I used to be the type of person that never reread books. It just wasn't my thing. I was like, why would I reread books if I can, like, read new books? Towards the end of last year, I really started getting into rereading books. I realized how great it is to reread books. So today I'm going to be talking about 16 books that I want to reread. I was trying to get it down to 10, but I'm a dumb bitch, and I just don't have the ability to, you know, like, limit myself in any way. So we're just going to talk about 16 books, and really it's like a lot more than that because I have some series. I have even one of them, I'm kind of cheating, it's 3 books by the same author, but the books aren't in a series or anything. But we're just going to say 16 so it doesn't seem that bad. So yeah, guess I'll just get right into it. The first book I want to reread is my favorite read of 2019, The Devouring Grey by Christine Lynn Herman. I read this back when it came out in March or April, I forget. Whatever, I read it back when it came out. And I became absolutely obsessed with it. You guys probably know since I went on about it on Twitter for like a month straight. Basically, this follows a town called Four Paths that had these 4 founding families. Each of them have a power that, well, each of them have like an emblem symbol of their family, like bones, that kind of thing. And each member of that family has a power that kind of relates to that thing. And they have to defeat this thing called the Devouring Grey, which is like this alternate reality type place where everything's like gray and grim and there's this like creature that kills people, and I just explained it terribly. Like I said, I have not slept in a long time, so we're just gonna go with it. This is absolutely amazing. I love it so much. I'm surprised I haven't reread it already, but I decided I'm gonna hold off until closer to the release of Deck of Omens, which comes out in March or April of 2020. So I'm gonna wait to reread this. I'm actually gonna try and get an arc of Deck of Omens if they have them because I need it, but I'm going to reread this. The next book I'm going to be talking about is actually a standalone that I don't think I've ever spoken about on my channel. That might be wrong, but if I have, I never talked about it, like, a lot. But it's called The Never Open Desert Diner by James Anderson. This is actually the first book I was ever sent to review. I reviewed it back when I was blogging in, like, 2015 or 2016, probably 2016. But this book's amazing. It basically follows a truck driver and his life driving through this, like, desert route that, like, there's a bunch of weird characters he meets. It's really good. Like, it's really good. I actually, when I first got it, I was like, wow, it sounds sophisticated. I'm going to become a sophisticated adult and read sophisticated books. I mean, I was wrong, but at the same time, it is kind of sophisticated. I'm like a fancy bitch, so it's amazing. I think I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars originally. I don't know. I need to reread it. It's been like 3 years, and I'm very excited. So the next 2 books are a very popular series on BookTube, and it is A Court of Mist and Fury. Just kidding, this is A Court of Thorns and Roses and A Court of Mist and Fury. I need to reread these 2 books before I get into A Court of Wings and Ruin and A Court of Frost and Starlight, and before the rest of the books in the series come back out. This I gave like a 4.5 stars when I first read it, but upon after I read this, I realized this really wasn't that good compared to this. This is like an amazing 5-star best book ever read. Well, this one is a good book, but not as good as this, obviously. So I need to reread both of these before I continue the series. So these next 4 books are also a part of a series. Another one I don't know if I've ever spoken about on my channel, but it's like one of my all-time favorite series. But it is the Endgame series. So there's Endgame The Calling, Sky Key, which is the 2nd book, and then there's 2 like novella collections. One's the Training Diaries, and the other's called the Zero Line Chronicles. I'm literally such a mess. I'm just gonna hold up these 2. But basically, a lot of people say this is a ripoff of The Hunger Games, but I personally think I like this series more than The Hunger Games. Wow, did I just say that? Yes, I did. I'm such a badass. It follows the end of the world, kind of. So there's 12 people that are selected to, is it 12? There's 12 lines in the world, and basically one person from each line trains their whole life to become the player of this game that they never know is going to happen. It could happen tomorrow, could happen 50,000 years from now. Every lifetime they have a player that trains just in case it happens during their lifetime. And this obviously follows when it actually happens, and they pretty much have to fight for their line. So basically, out of these 12 people, only one's going to win, and they're going to save their whole line. So that 11/12ths out of the world are going to die, and only 1/12 is going to actually survive. I only read the first 2 books and the novella collection, so I have not read the final book, and I believe there's another novella collection that came out for it. And I really need to, because I absolutely love this series so much. It's kind of a lot to take in. The font's really small, and it's weird, like, it's fractured sentences. The writing style's kind of weird, but after I got used to it, I, like, fell in love with it. I will say that James Frey, the author, I'm pretty sure has had some problematic shit go down, so I don't remember what it was, but 90% sure he did. So check that out if that's something that, like, keeps you away from books. Up next, I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite childhood series that I didn't finish in my childhood, but I need to now, and it is the series of unfortunate events. I only owned the first 3 books, so The Bad Beginning, The Reptile Room, and The Wide Window. I don't remember how many I read as a kid. I read like half the series, 6 or 7 of them, and I want to reread the ones I've read and finally finish the rest of them. And you guys probably know what this series follows, so I'm not going to get into it too much, but I read the first book. That's not the first book. I read the first book a few times, but I'll reread it again for the sake of, you know, life. This next book is actually one that I read for a book club I had just with my friends that I tried forcing to read back in like 2015, and only one of my friends actually came through and read with me. Shout out to Mike. You're a real one. But it is Looking for Alaska by John Green. This is my favorite John Green book. I've only read his big 3, well, now 4 now, Turtles All the Way Down, but I haven't read that yet. But so Looking for Alaska, Fault in Our Stars, and Paper Towns. I really liked Fault in Our Stars. Paper Towns was okay. And this is my favorite John Green novel. I remember the story mostly, but I want to reread it before I watch the TV show on Amazon Prime. So I'm going to go ahead and do that soon. So this next book has a sequel that came out that it wasn't originally supposed to have a sequel, I believe, but obviously it ended up having one. But it is The Call by that name, Peter O'Gillen. That's definitely wrong, but I tried. Basically, this is a horror novel. It's a YA horror novel, and it follows this world in which kids between the ages of like 12 to 17, I forget the age range for sure. I read this like 3 or 4 years ago, but they basically will, I don't know how to explain it. They can be anywhere in the world. They go to this school in which they're training for this moment where they'll randomly pretty much disappear and wake up in the middle of a random world that has these creatures that basically are trying to kill them, and a very small fraction of kids actually survive it. So they basically train to make sure that they survive it, and that just follows this world, and it was really, really, really good, and I really want to read the sequel, so I'm going to read this again. Yeah. I'm going to talk about the 3 books by the same author that I was talking about before, but they are all by Morgan Matson. I have Second Chance Summer, which basically follows this girl that she's going to her vacation home that her family hasn't been to in years because her father is currently dying of cancer, I believe. He's dying of something, and they want to have like one last good summer. This is the first book that ever made me cry, one of the only books that ever made me cry. Gave it 5 stars. The Unexpected Everything, obviously also by Morgan Matson. I also gave this book 5 stars. I read this the year it came out, and this one follows a girl. Her dad is a big political figure. He has like a scandal kind of, so our main character, who is his daughter, kind of has to give up all of her summer plans and becomes a dog walker when she had everything figured out. Love this one. This is my favorite Morgan Matson. And then finally, Since You've Been Gone. This one I actually didn't like that much. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but I think it's because I wasn't in the mood for it when I read it last year or the year before. I listened to it on audio. It's one of the first books I ever listened to on audio, and I used to not care for audio much. I just kind of listened to books on there and didn't care that much. So I want to give this one an actual read. This follows a girl, her best friend disappears and kind of leaves her this like checklist of dares and to-dos. Like, for example, go skinny dipping, steal something, hug someone named Jamie, just random shit like that. And yeah, to kind of break her out of her shell. So I want to reread all of these. I have not read Amy and Roger's Epic Detour yet. That's the only one I haven't read by her. And I have read Save the Date, but I really didn't like that book. I do own it because I like to own all the books by authors I really like. But I'm never going to reread it because it's not that good. This next one is the only classic in high school that I really loved. Well, one of the only classics in high school that I really loved. It's The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Next year is 2020, so I want to read this iconic 20s book because that's just the type of person I am. And yeah, look at this cover. Absolutely beautiful. I read this in 10th grade of high school, and I was in 10th grade back in 2014, 2015. Yeah, 2014, 2015 is when I was in 10th grade. So it's been a good 4 or 5 years since I've read this. Next year will make 6 years. God damn. So I need to read it again. y'all know what it's about. I love the Leonardo DiCaprio movie. This next book is one I want to reread because I don't think I actually took in what I was reading the first time I was reading it, because I was just trying to like speed through it. But that's A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This book basically follows a boy who's met by this like tree monster every night, and this monster kind of tells him 3 stories that are supposed to teach him lessons in life. And his mother is dying of cancer, so I should have mentioned that first, because that's like the big part of this book. But I mentioned it now, so you know. But yeah, this has pictures, which I love. So I'm gonna reread. I'm gonna read it soon. The next book I want to reread is New World Rising by Jennifer Wilson. I love the covers of the series. Well, I only own this one, but I've seen the covers for the rest of them. It's a trilogy. But I don't remember what this is about, like, at all. It's a dystopian, I can tell you that. I gave it 5 stars when I read it a couple years ago. It was amazing. I remember literally being completely shook, shocked, and shaken when I read it because of how good it was. And now I can't tell you what it's about because I remember, like, little snippets of it. I'm just going to reread it before I eventually get the rest of the series and read it, because I loved it back then, and hopefully I'll love it now. I'm sorry if you hear my dogs fighting in the background. They're being little bitches. Frankie, come here. Oh, okay, well, apparently Riley wants to come up. Look at the camera. Look at the camera. Oh, she's terrified. She's the big bitch. She's a chihuahua, but she's kind of huge. Here's Riley. Come on, Riley. She likes being held more. Okay, really, you're making me look like a liar. Look at this queen. There's Percy, too, but she's kind of chilling over there, so we're not going to mess with... Just kidding. She got a... Do you want to be in my video, Percy? Percy! I caused a fight. Hey! Come here, Percy. This is my queen, Percy, a.k.a. Persephone. We stan her. The love of my life. I'm going to put you down now. Hey! Stop fighting. Leave each other alone. This next one's another one that shocked me. I think I read this in July 2018, but it's The Anomaly by Michael Rutger? I don't know. This follows a team of YouTube archaeologists, I guess, that go and explore a cave in the Grand Canyon, I think. I don't know. It's in some famous place. They go and explore a cave, and they find all these, like, monsters that kind of start killing them and shit. And I love it. I gave it like a 4-star when I read it, but it's definitely a 5-star. Like, this is one of the books that I still think about, like, to this day, and I'm like, that definitely deserved a 5-star. I think there might be an adaptation of this coming out. I think I heard that somewhere. I might be wrong. I don't know, but there is a lot of, like, religious aspects to it, more biblical aspects than, like, religious, because the monsters are kind of, it's like, it has a religious undertone. It's not a religious book, but there's, like, a religious undertone behind, like, the mythology in it. But it's amazing. Read it. This next book is probably my favorite book of all time, I think. I have 2 copies. There's one up there. But it is I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. I read this last year in September. Yes, last year in September. And I absolutely adored it. This is one of the other books that made me cry. This book didn't make me cry. It made me fucking bawl. I was a little bitch. Like, I was, ugly crying when I read this. Basically, it follows a split timeline, dual perspective of these 2 twins named Noah and Jude. So the younger years, back when they're like 12, 13, is Noah's story. It's following his sexuality. He's gay, so he's kind of figuring that out, and shows him and his sister relationship. And then flash forward to 16, 17, it's Jude's perspective. And in hers, she is kind of dealing with stuff. She's in art school, and it's her romantic life. And you kind of know that at some point, the twins went from being best friends to kind of, not enemies, but not talking to each other anymore, and the story kind of pieces together why that happened. And another big thing, I can't remember if it's a spoiler, so I'm not going to say it. Just read it. This is literally one of the most beautiful books that I've ever read, and I am scared to Stop! I'm scared to reread it because it's going to emotionally break me for a whole month like it did last time, but I'm ready for that. So this one's another one of my favorite books of 2018. So this one didn't come out in 2018, but I read it in 2018. It's The Foxhole Court by Nora Sakovic. This book is amazing. It has my book boyfriend in it, It has my favorite bookish boyfriend in it, Andrew Minyard. I don't know how to say his last name, but I'm literally obsessed with him. He's amazing. I did not expect to love this book. This is probably, like, out of all my, like, all-time favorite books, this is the one that I least expected to love as much as I did, because it has to do with, like, a sport, which is made up, and it has to do with the mafia, 2 things that I absolutely hate, but this book was absolutely amazing. I loved every part of it. I love the sport aspect. I love the crime aspect. I loved it all. I want to reread this before I read the rest of the trilogy, so I plan on doing that soon. So here's another gay book that I want to reread, and it's More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. I remember this is one of the only books I read when I was at university, which I was only there for a semester before I dropped out. Whoop-de-doo. But it's one of the only books that I read while I was there, and I actually have really good memories reading this book because I'd always go to class early and I'd sit like in the little lobby waiting area and read this, and I was like, I'm literally such a good college student. And then flash forward a few months where I stopped going to class and just dropped out. Besides the point. But I want to reread this. I didn't give this 5 stars. I gave it like 4.5 out of 5 stars, close enough. But like once again, looking back on it, I'm like, this is probably a 5-star read. It's the only Adam Silvera book I ever read. But I think it's also the first book that I ever like related to. Okay, so this is editing Jake. Yes, I'm literally sitting in a dark room. Like, don't come for me. But I realized I pretty much spoiled the whole plot to More Happy Than Not. So you guys aren't going to get a little plot description from me because I literally don't remember enough of it to give you guys a synopsis that isn't spoilery. So just look up the synopsis, but I'm going to reread it. I did not realize that I already talked about all the books. So here is the last books I have to talk about. And it is the Percy Jackson series. I've read this series like 2 or 3 times. 3 times? 2 times? Only 2 times, I think. I've read the first Percy Jackson book like 5 times because I used to read it. And then in college, this is the other thing I read in college, along with the Adam Silvera book. But in college, I had one of my best friends, still to this day I love her, Patrice. She forced me to read the rest of these, and it became my favorite series of all time. They're absolutely, like, amazing, and I love them so much. I just want to, but funny enough, I haven't read any of his other series. I literally have a Heroes of Olympus tattoo, and I haven't read the series. The reason being, I decided to get this tattoo literally last minute, and I wanted something Percy Jackson related, and I know the whole story behind this, because I was spoiled, and, like, I know a lot of things that happened in that series, and I was like, I want a Percy Jackson related tattoo, like, right now. I'm not original, and it was literally last minute, so now I have a few other Percy Jackson tattoos I want, but this is all I have right now, and it's for a series I haven't even read, but whatever. But yeah, so I want to reread this and then finally make my way through the rest of his series. There are I had like a list of like 35 books that I wanted to reread, but I was like, I'm going to cut it down to 16. I wanted to cut it down to 10, like I said before, but obviously I didn't get there. So those are the 16, really like 25 since there's some series and other books in there, but we're just going to say 16 books that I want to reread in the near future, as in between now and the next year. I want to reread all these. So that's my plan. You can like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I don't know why you would enjoy this video since I'm literally a fucking mess. Like, I feel delusional. Like, that's how I feel right now. I feel like I'm deluded. I hear talking like someone's out in the hallway of my apartment building, but I don't know if it's actually there because I'm going a little insane right now. But that's besides the point. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a comment down below on stuff because I like talking to people. That's it. I like talking to people. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna go to sleep like I should have done like 7 hours ago. Toodles.